right. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Freelance Business Week, Day 2, brought to you by Dallas and Denver. It is my pleasure to introduce Simone. She is phenomenal. She's here locally in Denver, and she's just doing a lot of great things. So, without further ado, I'll let her give you her whole spiel because I could go on for a while, but I'll spare you all and let her take over.
Aw, thank you, Alicia. And thank you for all your work with Freelance Business Week. You all are doing a phenomenal job in creating such a great and valuable experience. So I am really, really happy to be joining everyone today to talk about something that is just super important to me, which is building inclusive businesses. And so I am the CEO and founder of Simone D. Ross Consulting. And Simone D. Ross Consulting essentially holds three different business entities. And so the main entity that I'm coming to you, I guess, with that hat on today is business operations strategy and consulting. And so I arrived at this place of doing this work because I spent over 15 years in the private sector as a corporate exec. I know right now you're shocked because you're like, oh my gosh, she looks so young. Like she can do TikTok dances and stuff. So I'll give you a minute just to kind of sit with that. But I actually exited the corporate sector because as possessing the intersections of Black and woman, it was really, really abusive in the private sector in the work that I was doing, often being the only. And so I wanted to better understand the root cause of why I was experiencing everything that I experienced in corporate. And then as I went to meet other women and people of color occupying positions and roles in corporate systems, we had the same fact pattern. And so I said, well, I'll be damned if my kids come back and tell me these stories. And so I just started to really, with my knowledge being in business operations and business development and strategy, join consulting and taking an intersectional and inclusive lens in consulting. And so that's kind of how we got here today, with me being honored to share with all of you. So we are here today to talk about building an inclusive business. I love this audience particularly because you possess so much power and influence in reshaping business as we know it, right? If you're a startup or a freelancer or looking to start a new business, you have the ability to create infrastructure from the ground up that is anti-racist. And there's significant ROI to doing that. We know that BIPOC spending dollars are going to be at about $6 trillion. They're there right now. And we know that by 2045, the majority population will not be the majority population. And so it's a business imperative to start building businesses that can serve customers and create goods and services that serve customers that are intersectional. And that we ensure that we have leadership put in place to be able to effectively do this. So this is what we are going to talk about today. So let's do the screen share that always brings such anxiety, but I'm trusting that it is going to work out in my favor. And let's just start. Well, you already learned about me. I'm sure that was probably the least intriguing part, but this is who I am. That's my face. So what is a business? What is a business enterprise? It's an organization or enterprising entity that engages in commercial, industrial, or professional activities. So we're all in business, right? You're a business person. You're building this enterprise that's building and enterprising activities. What else is a business? It's the organized efforts of individuals to create a profit, right? And you create that profit by a service, which many of you all provide, or selling a good, a thing, a widget, this mouse. That's what business does. Well, what kind of goes into even creating a business? It can be defined as several lines of theory that help you understand the administration of the business, organizational behavior, strategic management. All these things go in to business. Here is something that I found incredible in looking up what the heck a business is and researching it. there's no mention of inclusivity, of intersectionality, of equity, of belonging. So it's our job as we're reimagining business and as we're thinking about the next business enterprises of the future that are serving people in unique and innovative and new ways, let's fill in those gaps because this is something that is missing from this definition. So if it's missing from the definition, what are we actually trying to fill in the gaps with? And that is inclusivity. Inclusivity is the practice of providing equal access to opportunities and resources, often to people who are marginalized. It's the idea of not excluding anybody based on race, gender, class, sexuality, disability, etc., right? And those are those things too that create our identities, our intersectional identities. Inclusivity is about creating a work environment that makes people feel valued, seen, heard, and acknowledging their differences and the asset that those differences are, how these differences contribute to organizations, culture, and business outcomes. So you're probably thinking what I'm thinking. Inclusivity sounds kind of dope. Like, this sounds like something cool. Why wouldn't this be included in our definition of business? Well, for a long time, it hasn't been. And for a long time, businesses have been in a continual cycle of not serving everybody, leaving people feeling excluded, creating barriers to access and opportunity, and sometimes completely missing an entire customer base, all because we're not building inclusive businesses. We're progressing status quo, a status quo that is broken and that's not working for nearly half of our population. So it's time that we redefine business. Here's the unique thing. In my consultancy, when we're talking about redefining business and reshaping business to be inclusive, sometimes people are like, I have to change everything in my business. It's not changing everything, it's adding to, it's complementing. So I just kind of took that definition and did some minor retooling. And so I wanted you all to see, just really as an exercise, how you too can add inclusivity into your business, oftentimes with some minor retooling that has major long-term impact. So if we're going to redefine business, we're redefining business as an inclusive and anti-racist organization or enterprise. We're reshaping business to say that we're creating these amazing outcomes because all the efforts and activities of individuals, yes, and intersectional teams, we're collaborating to produce and sell goods and services that are accessible to a diverse customer base for profit. As we build this business, we're informing ourselves, understanding the market, taking in all these theories, but we're also adding something into what we're doing. We're adding anti-racist business modeling to our organization theory, to our strategic management plans. And truly, this is the only way that we can innovate business. So our goal as leaders, as creators, as founders, is to actually create an anti-racist business. Because we know that if we effectively do this, we effectively work as a collective to dismantle systems that don't provide equal access to opportunity. We know that if we do this, we're enhancing our access to a whole new customer base. We know that if we're creating anti-racist businesses, that we're creating a space for us to do some more in-depth problem solving, invite more voices, pass the mic. So what does that take, though? It takes leadership. That's a big thing. I see lots of organizations that say, we want to do this work. However, their leadership is not prepared or educated or willing or ready to do the work and progress the work. And it's not a key tenet of leadership. So we need leadership. And I think that's probably why you're joining me today, is because you want to lead these efforts and what you're creating and who you're serving. We also need operations. Creating anti-racist businesses isn't saying, I heard Simone speak and she really fired me up and I've been reading some books and so I think we're good. Well, if we're looking at systems, we have to uncover the systems that have historically oppressed others. And then we have to operationalize anti-racism. And this is done a variety of ways. And then we have to embed it, bake it in fully into culture. And so we've got to acknowledge the systemic racism in workplaces. Like I said, I worked in the private sector for 15 years. Sometimes things were just habit, right? Like those weird performance review things that I had to do and the way I had to manage performance. It was in the system, but it was a barrier to success for a lot of people doing strange 9-box activities with other executives. So I had to recognize the places where systemic racism exists in the workplace, right? You got to look at that job description that you've written. Does it say no tattoos, no dreadlocks? Are you creating something just because this is how we've always created it? Are you creating something that systemically leaves people out? Well, you have to recognize and acknowledge that it exists. Once we've uncovered it, once we've lifted the hood up on those things, we have to operationalize it. We have to dismantle those systems that we've all just kind of learned that this is the way we do business. We don't talk about race and other provocative topics at work because it doesn't feel good. Those are old school things that haven't progressed business. We have to uncover and dismantle systems of oppression within the business unit. And then we have to implement. And that's where culture comes in, anti-oppressive and anti-racist operations strategies. So as you're building a business, we all have a toolkit, right? It might be more education. It might be a software system that you've got a subscription to. Well, as you're building business, just as you have those other tools to create effective business, you've got to also have an anti-racist toolkit. What should be in that toolkit? Well, again, building an anti-racist and inclusive business comes with these 3 pillars: leadership, operations, and culture. As leaders, it's imperative that we acknowledge and understand the reality of supremacy culture and that we take it every place with us. Uncover the area supremacy shows up in business, human resources, policies, management. Once upon a time, it was said that a business's most important policy is their non-disclosure/compliance policy. So let's think about this. We create policies to protect our business from risk, right? So we've got non-competes to say, you, Mr. or Mrs. Employee, you're not going to ever leave the business and take all my clients, because that protects the business, right? We have a policy for conflict of interest where it says, well, you're not going to commingle funds. And if you have memberships in other organizations, you're not going to share that funding, right? We've got intellectual capital policies where we say, these are our assets and we want to protect them. You know what most businesses don't have is an blatant, bold, anti-racist policy to say that we are going to care for and protect our employees from the violence and trauma that racism in the workplace brings. That's just as important as a non-compete or a compliance policy, but most companies don't have them. A lot of companies don't even have policies that talk about supplier diversity, saying it's important to us that we do business with BIPOC firms. And because of that, X% of our contracts and vendor relationships are meant to elevate BIPOC businesses because this is good economics. Uncover the area supremacy shows up as leaders. Rehabilitate the leadership team. We are in a pandemic, but we've been in a pandemic for a long time. And the pandemic is the supremacy culture that we're so ingrained in. Well, that requires that we heal. That requires that we treat it. There's no vaccine right now for for supremacy culture and racism, and especially how it shows up in business. However, we can do a little bit of rehab in creating exercises, learning, and growing opportunities for leaders to do internal work, creating spaces for teams to have bold and courageous conversations about what's going on in business, creating spaces for leaders to have peer reviews. Well, let's talk about how many resumes you've received. Well, how many of them are from BIPOC candidates or candidates that possess unique intersections? Well, how many of those people have made it to actually interview? Are we seeing some trends? Are BIPOC candidates not making it actually to the interview process? Are they dropping off and not being hired? Well, let's rehabilitate the leadership team. Let's uncover bias and the role that it plays in the way we make decisions, whether it's hiring decisions, performance management decisions. Let's put in some infrastructure and some policy and some leadership tactics and strategies to where we're sitting down and reading one another's performance reviews, where we're really standing as champions and courageous leaders to create equity, accountability culture at a leadership level, where we're leading our organization to think differently about who our business serves, how they serve them, who we're getting feedback from, and what we're doing with that feedback. That requires leadership, and that has to be in the anti-racist toolkit. Again, there has to be a model for accountability, and leaders must hold others accountable. Previously, in the business models that we see acting right now, at the point that somebody raised even an inkling or a question that perhaps something is going on in the business unit that could be racist, or it could have felt like a microaggression, typically the point of attack is the person that raises the complaint, as opposed to actually doing the diagnostic work to figure out where in the business supremacy culture lies and to fix it, as opposed to just getting rid of the person that has brought light to the fact that supremacy culture exists in the business. Leaders model accountability and they hold others accountable. And then ongoing learning. As we build inclusive businesses, it requires for learning and unlearning. Unlearning what many of us have been taught, like this is just the way that business works. This is just how we do it. This is how we make decisions. Bringing in new tools, models, and matrix to be able to measure what we're doing, make better decisions, and more informed decisions, and more inclusive decisions. Your toolkit should be heavily focused on operations, because what we know is that racism is systematized. So, in order to break down those barriers in companies, in business units, we also have to systematize anti-racism. So that's evaluating policies and procedures. Oftentimes we'll start a business, or maybe we'll even get funding and start a spin-off business from a parent company, and we'll just take the old company's HR handbook or look online and grab a HR handbook, and we'll just say, all right, stamp a logo on it, let's go. But are we really evaluating the policies and procedures and what we're putting in place? What kinds of punitive things are we just kind of trickling down, ghosts of businesses past, that might operationalize exclusivity as opposed to inclusivity? Again, do we have a direct anti-racist no tolerance policy? Do we have repercussions at the point that somebody is behaving in exclusive ways that exclude and create barriers? How are we deciding steps for promotion? How are we choosing in our company who gets to benefit from continuing education funds and opportunities? How are we executing our mobile work strategy? Is there one? How are we communicating externally? Is there a plan for that? All of these are operational functions. Again, we have to rewrite oppressive policies once we've done the evaluation. A lot of policies that we just take with us or download actually are tremendous barriers to success of your business unit. They keep others out. Challenge systemic barriers to promotion. Let's think about this. Let's look at our job descriptions. Let's look at our culture. Do we have mentorship culture, or do we have sponsorship culture? Are we working actively to sponsor intersectional identities and roles of leadership? Challenge barriers to promotion. And again, are we championing supplier and contractor diversity? Are we ensuring that we have got a fair and equitable RFP process to ensure that BIPOC people are a part of the process? Not just I'm getting a contractor or creating a vendor relationship with my friend, but are we creating spaces where we're able to distribute wealth in BIPOC communities, but also bring heightened innovation and thought partnership and leadership to your business unit? Because we're saying we're going to actually get outside of the box with our vendor relationships and bring on other vendors. And you operationalize that through statement of work processes and RFP processes that oftentimes we just don't do because we're so quick to try and make a decision and form relationships that we're not thinking about how these relationships impact building anti-racist businesses. Then the other pillar of building an anti-racist business is culture. No tolerance for racism. Creating pass the mic opportunities for your team members to share their origin story, to talk about their experience in this nation, even at your company, to highlight the amazing achievements of everybody on your teams. As leaders, we should be working to pass the mic to ensure everybody's having opportunities to speak and share. And then we're doing intersectional and interdisciplinary inclusion in our culture. As we make decisions, we're using this really cool tool that I'm going to show with you. It's called an intersectional decision matrix, where we're rethinking how we make decisions to ensure that everyone who's impacted, or even those who could be vicariously impacted, are thought of on the front end. So we're not doing things reactionary on the back end to fix business decisions that were exclusive and oppressive. And again, encouraging and championing and providing opportunities for ongoing learning in teams. So how do we make these inclusive spaces? Kimberly R. Crenshaw came up with something amazing in the 80s, intersectionality. What this recognizes that people are disadvantaged by multiple sources of oppression. It recognizes that identity markers just don't exist exclusively from each other, but they actually create some complexities in how oppression converges. So when I introduced myself, I said my intersections are Black and woman. Those two things interact differently, right? And there's different layers of oppression to being a Black woman, but it also yields such magic in the boardroom because of my life experiences, the ways that I've been able to innovate and create because of those intersections. Some of the intersections to consider when building teams are gender identity, nationality, disability, race, and sexual orientation. Oftentimes we kind of look for the checkbox, right? Like, all right, I got the Black dude here. I've got the Asian American there. I've got Pacific. Okay, I think we're good. Well, that's not really what it's about. It's about actually understanding those intersectional identities and creating psychologically safe places for these intersectional identities to come together and contribute to the organization. It's saying, well, perhaps I can find a Vietnam vet or someone who's differently abled, and they possess these intersections, and we can bring this person to the table to help us find solutions for what we're trying to build. But inclusive spaces have to be created to even see, honor, and pull up a chair at the table for these intersectional identities. And we have to seek them out and be intentional about inviting them into the conversations. The thing about intersectionality is that there's multiple intersections, so many combinations. These combinations yield a lot of value for a business unit. Intersections interact with each other all the time, and still they create great value for the business unit. Intersections are unpredictable, which is why we have to create safe spaces for these intersections to live out and for us to see them. and allow them to contribute to our businesses. So when we're making business decisions, oftentimes we don't start with some of these questions. Who's been left out? What intersectional identities have been left out of this big decision? What identities have not been considered? How can we include more identities so that we can beta test what we're creating and so that we can have a strong, firm foundation of our business? Because Audre Lorde said it best, there's no such thing as a single issue struggle because we don't live single issue lives. So let's put all of our issues on the table. Let's build this thing, this business, create this culture. Let's lead in a dynamic way to where we're considering everyone and finding ways to bring these voices because we know that this will benefit the business tremendously. So let's talk about this intersectional decision-making matrix. Well, it doesn't matter what you're creating. It's all about context, objective, key steps, identification of challenges, addressing those challenges, and evaluating your outcomes. When making any decision, ask these questions. What can my organization or can I do as an individual to ensure an intersectional approach in our work? Let's say you're building a new app. Ask this question. How can I ensure an intersectional approach to building this new app? Perhaps you can crowd beta the app and invite intersectional voices to the table in your crowd beta. Well, what objectives do you want to achieve? Well, I'm building an app, and I want people to be included. And the objective to have people included is so that I can broaden my customer base, so that I can do the right thing morally, so that I can be a champion. Well, okay, if I want to achieve those objectives, then I really need to have more voices at the table. So what key steps do I need to take in order to reach my objective? Well, like I said, maybe I want to beta crowd test this new app. And these are the people that need to be there. Maybe I need to rethink my strategic partnerships. If I'm creating an intersectional app, something that can be easily accessible, perhaps I need partnerships with somebody in closed captioning. Maybe I need translation partnerships that I hadn't even thought about. Maybe I need an infographic partnership so that we can speak through pictures and art. Maybe I need a sliding fee scale. Maybe I need some different funders. Well, now this is opening up the door to the key steps that we need to go down to make these decisions. Well, you got to form a war room too. You have to identify the challenges. What are some challenges I might face in reaching my objectives? Well, maybe I'll say the wrong thing and slip up when inviting these intersectional voices to the table. Maybe I won't be able to find the partnerships. Maybe other people will be mad at me. Or maybe I'll even get some backlash because I haven't included everyone. And then come up with ways to address those challenges. And then put metrics around it. How can you evaluate your progress to see if you've achieved your objective? What worked well? What could be improved? What are the next steps? So we're going to do something together, and we're going to engage a little bit in the chat together. We are going to build the most basic of businesses. But is it really that basic? We're going to build an intersectional lemonade stand together. But we're going to do it differently, right? Because usually when you build a lemonade stand, you get your lemonade mixed stuff. You find some real estate, probably in your neighborhood on a street corner. You put up some signage and the people come. But we're going to take this a step forward as founders and leaders and entrepreneurs. When we build our intersectional lemonade stand together, I want you to consider these things. In building a lemonade stand, who historically has been excluded? Why? How? What cost? What identities is your business going to serve in this lemonade stand? What intersections is your new business going to touch? Well, how will you let these identities know that they're seen, that they're honored, that they have value at your lemonade stand? How will you evaluate the success of your lemonade stand? How will you innovate the success of your lemonade stand? How will you course correct? So I'm going to stop sharing. I want you all to get in this chat and chat it up with me. Talk to me about your lemonade stand. So I'm going to pop some questions in here and we're going to respond together. Who historically, though, has been left out of the lemonade stand business? So historically in the lemonade stand business, sometimes there's been accessibility issues, right? They're usually in your neighborhood. The lemonade stand is usually someplace where just the folks within your circumference can access them. And oftentimes the lemonade stand business isn't really inclusive of ADA accessibility standards. They could probably use some different signage and different ways to let people know that we're actually selling lemonade. And historically, the lemonade stand business has only been open to people that actually had 25 cents to be able to buy that lemonade. Well, there's lots of ways for us to bring more voices to the table and more intersectional identities and experiences and honor them. We can do some different things in innovating this lemonade stand by maybe not even writing lemonade. Maybe we use some infographics to communicate that we've got a lemonade stand. That could work. Maybe we think about our real estate choice. If we want to reach different people, maybe we need to be located in a different place. Let's think about our hours of operation of our lemonade stand. Usually the lemonade stand business is an afternoon thing. But what about somebody that works different hours and needs flexibility? Can we have staggered hours to access our lemonade stand? Well, then what would that do? Then there's dietary restrictions. The typical lemonade stand was one size fits all. Here's your cup of lemonade. Give me a quarter. Have a good day. But what if I have some restrictions and I don't want sugary lemonade? What if I want another option that you can give me that could even speak to what I'm looking for at the lemonade stand? Well, there's lots of identities, right, that have been left out of the old faithful lemonade stand business. This is the way we retool businesses, though, right? We look at the business model as it stands, tried and true, and retool. And we say, who's been left out and how can we bring those voices into the business? Well, there's also some other questions to consider when we're building our lemonade stand. So we know who historically has been excluded. Why? Well, we can guess why. How? It could be accessibility. It could be language barriers. At what cost? Well, we've excluded a whole group of people that could benefit from our services. Wow. We've completely closed the market. Well, now we need to talk about what identities your business will serve. What intersectional identities might your lemonade stand serve? Well, let's see. Let's look at my intersectional identities. I'm Black. I'm a woman. I'm a single mother. Yeah. Well, these are some more identities that the business can serve in different ways. Well, as a single mother, I'm responsible for drop-offs and pickups of my kiddos. So maybe our lemonade stand needs to have some different operating hours so that I too can be a part of your lemonade stand. Well, I really like lemonade, but because I'm doing online learning, it's sometimes hard to access the business. So perhaps to effectively serve my identities, we can add a business line, lemonade delivery. So I can still benefit from this cool lemonade stand, but just not in the typical way that you would see a lemonade stand work. Let's look at some other intersections. What if I'm differently abled? Is it wheelchair accessible? Usually lemonade stands aren't really. Well, how do I read your signage if I'm vision impaired? Well, how do I learn about the ingredients in your lemonade if English isn't my first language. Well, now, if I want my business to serve some of these identities, I have to think of innovative ways to bring it to you. Like I said, perhaps I use infographics. Perhaps I have a rolling video playing at my lemonade stand so that you can hear in English and Spanish and Mandarin and French and whatever other languages the ingredients in my lemonade. We're making it ADA compliant. Let's think about all of the identities that the business serves, and let's start creating partnerships. Let's start creating frameworks for the business to best serve these identities. And then let's beta test them, right? Let's bring the voices in. We've kind of already said we are thinking that these are the things that would benefit these intersections, but let's beta test. Let's crowd test this with the intersections. Let's pass the mic. Let's create a larger table and create seats at the table to bring some of these ideas that we have and to see if they work, to help really champion these ideas. So think about it. What intersections does your business serve? Then beta test it. Well, now that we've considered who's been left out of the lemonade stand business, what intersections the lemonade stand business is going to serve, now let's talk about the EQ in creating intersectional and inclusive operation strategies. And that is, how will these intersections know that they are seen? Well, the biggest thing, like we said, we're going to beta test. We'll maybe have some talkbacks. We'll do some pass the mic work. We'll ensure that our lemonade stand is representative of the intersections we're desiring to serve. We can do that through images. We can do that through our communication strategy, both internally and externally. Well, perhaps we put in some policies and procedures in how we're actually operating this lemonade stand. Perhaps we put lemonade stands in neighborhoods that typically haven't had access to lemonade stands. That's a way to let folks know that they're seen. How do we let the intersections in our businesses know that they're seen? What are we naming our business? Are the names triggering? What's the location? All of these things have to be considered when creating inclusive and intersectional businesses. Well, we've gone pretty far down the decision matrix when we're thinking about creating an intersectional lemonade stand. The next thing is, how do I evaluate my success? Oftentimes, founders get very insulated in the evaluation process. Sometimes they shy away from real metrics. So, how do you evaluate your success? Is it a matter of, again, bringing those voices to the table? Is it a matter of applying metrics to what you're looking to measure? Let's say you want an intersectional lemonade stand. And so you're honoring intersectional voices, being very strategic and intentional about ensuring that your lemonade stand is representative of those you serve. So we got to get some employees, right? We got to get some team members. Well, let's maybe talk to them and see, are we really living out this mission of ensuring intersectionality and intentional inclusivity? Let's talk to our customers. Let's ask those questions. Well, as we're trying to get team members, maybe we evaluate our success in being able to even recruit people to come work for us. Maybe we're looking at retention rates. Okay, I can recruit them, but I can't keep them. And then how do you course correct? What kind of mechanisms for receiving feedback do you have? Are you getting and receiving feedback? And how do people know what you're doing with it? So determine how you evaluate the overall success. Yep, we are definitely building intersectional and inclusive businesses. The key to it is that it requires us to think differently, to think more expansively, to operationalize inclusivity. And a key tenet of that is undoing things that we've learned and some of the normatives that are seemingly not so normal these days, to put structures and infrastructure in place. And most importantly, to uncover where we've got supremacy culture rampant and what we can do to fix it. So, we've built an intersectional lemonade stand. And this is just at its base. And hopefully, you were able to use this as an exercise. I know it's a little silly because you're like, well, we're not building lemonade stands, but it's a great exercise to think about business and businesses as we've noted, and how oftentimes we do so many things just because that's the way it is. That's how it works. That's how you build a business. But sometimes we're not taking these intentional steps to think about the intersectional nature of what we're creating. So I want to stay connected to you. I want to open it up for questions. Pop them in the chat. I'm happy to address them because I want to make sure we have time for at least a good 10 minutes or so for questions. But I also want to give us a moment just to kind of stay connected. So please feel free to write down my social media handles. You can subscribe to my newsletter, or just send me an email directly. I've got a really cool Excel file of the decision-making matrix for business leaders, and I'm happy to email it to you if you are interested. It's a whole Excel document that walks in more in depth, and you can input things and use it as a pivot point of conversation as you're building and creating whatever it is you're creating, or even as you're working with clients. You can use that to inform your decisions. So I'll leave this up for a few seconds. Please, as you're writing down or following me or emailing me to ask me for the Excel file of the decision matrix that we briefly went over, because this could be like a whole 2-hour session with leaders. Let's have some conversations. Put some of your questions and stuff for me in the chat too, because I would love, love, love to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Simone, for that presentation. That was amazing, to say the least. I'm keeping track. We don't have any questions yet, but I have a question as it relates to, being the service provider. So how do we know if our potential client has an inclusive business? How do we know who's the right fit for us to work with as freelancers?
I feel that, and I ask that all the time. And so I actually do sometimes include DEI questions into some of my client interviewing, and a lot of my clients have adopted it as well. And so it can be, well, what's your understanding of inclusivity and intersectionality? It can be questions like, how are intersectional identities included in your business? It can be things like, are you ready to include intersectional identities in your business? And is this an area that you want to do more of, that you need more support in? You can ask all of those kinds of questions, but definitely include those types of questions there. And it also presents you with an opportunity sometimes to determine who you want to work with and who you don't want to work with. It presents opportunities for you to be a connector. If that's not your area of expertise, it's a great way to connect the people that you are partnering with people that can help them achieve their goals in that area. And it's a way just to have some awareness, where people are saying, this is something that I probably should work on. So thank you for highlighting this area in my business. And it can be pretty revealing in those areas.
Mm-hmm. So to piggyback on that, what would be a kind of soft segue to letting them know your business isn't really as inclusive as you think, or, how do you get them to, start doing more work on, being more inclusive and understanding DEI, and even putting together maybe a whole strategy or making a project? Like, how do you pitch that to them if they are tone deaf to that, for lack of a better term?
I like to talk about the ROI of inclusivity in business. Again, we know that $6 trillion right now of spending power sits within BIPOC people. And so we want some of that 6 trillion. Right? As all business owners, we want to be able to do business within and get a piece of that 6 trillion, and it's growing year over year. I think those data points were from maybe like 2019 or 2020, and so it's probably exceeded 6 trillion. So number one, as a business owner, there's a tremendous amount of ROI to ensuring that your business is a place that is welcoming to and inclusive of BIPOC voices. And so that does require some strategy and some planning and some intentionality around ensuring that those voices are representative in the business model and the services and goods that you're providing. A second piece of that is that, you know, inclusivity has to become a key business imperative. There's a huge shift happening right now in the marketplace. Currently, the SEC is working on regulations that businesses can't go public if they've got EEO filings and complaints against them. We're watching. Entities are watching. Do you want to go IPO? Well, the answer will be no. If you've got a long history of acting in ways that are not inclusive. And so inclusivity, just again, as your non-compete, as your compliance policy, it has to be a business policy. And at the point that you see that your business is going off the rails and it is not that, there are some key things that are happening right now that could impact your exit strategy as a founder. And so these are things that are really important for business owners and operators to take into consideration. It can also impact your ability to get funding from VCs and other funders. These are questions now that funders are asking people as they seek funding. What are you doing to ensure inclusive business? If you can't prove that, you could be out of the runnings for funding. And so not only should business owners consider these things, if it's not just a moral imperative, these are key business imperatives for businesses, but they should also let their board of directors know as well that these are things as a board that they should be holding them accountable to, because it impacts exit strategy, it impacts abilities to retain and recruit, it impacts the business's ability to actually serve a wider customer base to produce and turn a profit.
Okay, thank you for that. So I do have some other questions. I'll pop them on the screen. So one question is, what should the interview process look like for an inclusivity consultant? So how should somebody start that process to identifying who might be the best fit to help their organization?
Yeah, I am all about RFP processes where you, as the thought partner or leader, sits down with whomever you consult with or build your business with to determine what you want and what inclusivity means to you as a business, and really kind of create what that means, right? Because businesses are in some different phases. I've got a client that is currently trying to have a very inclusive recruitment process. And just because of size and time constraints, they're not ready to move down some of that operationalizing of stuff like the policies, the procedures, the resource guides, building ERGs within the company. But it's like, we got to recruit. They're at 0 employees right now. They're trying to get to 50. And so it's being very concise as to what you want and what the business imperative is that you're trying to fulfill. And then certainly that consultant should be able to come in, understand that vision, and then add meat to it, right? You give them the bones, they should be able to add meat to it. The other piece of it too is that this work is incredibly intimate, right? And so when you're looking for a consultant, it's obviously like that simpatico. Like, do you understand my mission? Do you understand my business? Do you have the emotional intelligence to be able to effectively communicate with me? So certainly outline your needs. I think the other key piece too is to be very honest about your educational needs. This is an interesting space, right? Because sometimes you'll bring on like a software engineer, right? And it's like, I'm fixing that thing. And it's pretty easy to be like, that's the thing I'm fixing. Within this space, there's a lot of things that need support. And so it's important too to be like, well, what do we want to learn more about? I've got clients that come to me and say, well, we want to include common nomenclature. within our corporate structure. So we're all speaking the same language when it comes to inclusivity. And we want you to help us create that vocabulary and then create the processes so that we're adhering to it. And these are areas for growth and learning so that we're all on the same page. And then I think the other piece too is, at this point, inclusivity is an operations strategy. And so, in my humble opinion, your inclusivity consultant needs to have a very sound plan for how they are going to operationalize all the work that you've done into your business and do it in a way that is organic and authentic to your corporate mission, how your business runs, and things like that. So, it could look a lot of ways, right? It could look like authoring a white paper on your behalf. It could be creating thought leadership and partnership opportunities. But those are all things to consider when choosing a consultant. And, rule of thumb, maybe get 3 statements of work from consultants and go down the path of engagement. And I always tell businesses this, you got to budget for it, right? It's interesting too, within this work, organizations are like, I don't really have a budget. You've got to create a budget. And that budget can be anywhere from, depending on the level of work that you're needing, can be anywhere between, $6,500 and $20,000, depending on where you are in the business and what you're needing. But it is important to have a realistic budget. Like I said, just as you would bring on a consultant to be your IT consultant and find IT solutions, this is a consultant that's providing a valuable solution to your business.
Got it. Well, that is a good kind of intersection into, do you offer different packages?
Oh!
Like, how does that work? If somebody says, I need all this work, but here's my budget, like, are there levels to the services that you offer?
I love this question because this is a growth moment. I'm going to be vulnerable as a business owner, and you guys can probably feel my heart in this. I don't have it built as packages. I do a lot of customization, and you guys are probably like, girl, that is costing you money doing customization. But no, I do customization for clients, and I am pretty sensitive to budget. And so sometimes, like I said, it can be, we're going to put together a strategic framework for operationalizing inclusivity, right? And that could be a 4-hour session where we build the strategic plan, and that's phase 1. And so I'll do it by phases and break it down. And it really is determined based on what you need as a founder and what you're looking to do. And then, like I said, I like to work within budgets as best as I can to be fair to everybody. And so it's not packaged out, but there's phases of the work. And most of my clients, honestly, we work in phases, and it actually feels really good for the efficacy of the projects to be like, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. It's not like a we're healed kind of thing after the phases are complete, but it is good to go through those phases and complete them.
Awesome. Another question that we have is, so during your kind of discovery phase or, your engagement with this new potential client, is there a piece, or how do you know if they need additional support? So what does that look like? So if you realize, you have this problem, but you also have a really bad employee engagement problem and you need this other help, what does that look like?
It kind of looks like what you just said. I had to have a tough conversation with the client just this morning. And there are some other areas that they need support in. And I always create recommendations when I'm working on a project. And so I present the recommendations to the client and I say, it's a whole thing, y'all, because I'm very type A. So I'm like, these are the recommendations from the project. And then I like to be able to provide as many resources as I can. One of my key business imperatives is that I work with women and BIPOC owned businesses. And so I do a really good job of finding the best BIPOC businesses, both locally and nationally, to be able to partner with, to fulfill some of the things that can be in the recommendation. And that can be anywhere from actually creating a board ready strategic plan where I have to work with a vendor to create like a slick PDF or downloadable thing. It can be working with other vendors. There's this, one of my clients is so innovative. We created a resource guide for BIPOC people. They're a recruiting firm, and it's a 30-page resource guide that we've co-authored with downloadable files, but that required a ton of collaboration. And so I find the collaboration points from the assessment, make the recommendations, and if I can be a connector and conduit to making those connections, I do it. And sometimes too, the client will have business relationships that they want to ignite, which is great too, right? It's great to be able to work with somebody and find opportunities and create opportunities. I actually realized that that's why one of the main things I love doing the most is creating opportunities for other business owners. And so that's kind of how that works for me.
Awesome. Well, let's see. We've made it through all of our questions over here in the chat. Is there anything else that you want to share with us? Do you have any upcoming promos? You did share how we can connect with you and stay connected. Any special offerings? Anything like that you want us to know?
I know I have a giveaway, and I did my best to put it on the dashboard, but it's like a really cute, just a cute little kit that you can have. It's a Keep Calm, Trust Simone with your life and all of your business operations strategy mug, and like a cool mask. And so hopefully you all entered the drawing to win that, and I'll make sure you get it. And then I would love to stay connected. Can we put my email address and all that stuff and my website? How big and pretty you made it look when you did it.
Yes. If you just share that slide with me, I'll put it back up and we can get everybody to take a screenshot or, just take notes.
Yeah, let me share the screen again. It looked so good. I was like, when you did it, I'm like, this looks amazing. You got me looking all kinds of prime time right now. Okay. So this is where you can find me. Please find me. I love making new friends and just kind of geeking out, talking about business and helping founders realize their dreams and maybe even give some advice on some pivots or some pit holes that you might find yourself in. And so that makes me really, really excited. So please connect with me. I would love to have more Instagram followers too. I'm fairly interesting. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, that would be cool. I'll follow you back. But if you want that business decision-making matrix too, the intersectional decision-making matrix, shoot me an email with your email address. I don't know if we have a way to email everybody that came here. I can do that too with it as an attachment. But yeah, I would love to be able to share that resource. I've seen it really help leaders and founders and owners, executives reshape the way they're asking questions and thinking about how they're building their businesses. So
awesome. Well, thank you for that. I hope the giveaway is rigged because I want to win it. But
it's so cute. It's so cute. I'll have to send you one just because I love you.
Yes, I want to win the giveaway. One last thing, I'm not sure if this is the right place to plug it, but you didn't talk any about Beyond the Bio. I don't know if you want to say anything about that, but I think that is amazing, and I want you all to tune in and connect with Simone on that. But Simone, do you want to give a little?
I gave the quick and dirty because I wanted to get into the content so badly, but I also have an events organization that I found and manage, and so it's all about creating spaces for growth and healing. And so monthly we have an event called Beyond the Bio. It'll be this it'll be this Thursday. It's our 1-year birthday. Alicia has been so helpful in getting just stuff happening with that. And so I put the link to the event. It's this Thursday at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I bring phenomenal leaders and creators to the table. I've got about an audience. We usually get around 60 people on one of these Beyond the Bios. And so it would be great to have you there. Even if you're interested in being featured on Beyond the Bio, holla at your girl, because it's just a really cool space for people that are innovating and just really living in their truth and their craft to talk about their story. And then we talk about it as a group, and we do some group think and some group share. And I know that this has been something that has definitely saved me during this pandemic, and it's as we're coming out of it slowly but surely. It's something that we're going to continue and find a lot of different venues. So if you can join this Thursday, please join. I think you'll really enjoy it. If it's something that you might be interested in being featured on, definitely email me or follow me and talk to me about it. But there is the link, and it looks all pretty now. And yeah, would love to welcome you to the Beyond the Bio tribe. If you go to my website and subscribe to my newsletter too, you'll get notices all the time about Beyond the Bios. They're usually on the second Thursday of every month. So I hope to see you again on Thursday.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for that. Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate on that because that is something super awesome that you're doing. And as freelancers, that connection is important, and just hearing the stories of, just other businesses and just us as like we're still people first. So I really hope that you guys stay tuned in. We've got through all of our questions. Simone, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you and all the work that you're doing, and we will see you on Thursday.
Yes, see you all Thursday. Thank you for hanging out with me this afternoon. This was amazing.
All right, everybody, cheers to Tuesday, and we will see you all tomorrow for day 3. Bye.